London, the early 1970s, in wood-paneled pubs thick with the scent of stale ale and tobacco smoke, or on the clattering underground trains crisscrossing the capital. Britain was finding its rhythm. People were swept up in the rebellious chords of the Rolling Stones and the dizzying, neon-lit pace of a new era. Yet, step away from the high street, and the newsstands told a different story. One name dominated the headlines: ink-stained and urgent, Vietnam. More than 6,000 miles from the banks of the Thames, a brutal conflict was unfolding. But the echoes of those guns resonated with startling clarity right here, in the heart of London. From the scathing editorials in The Guardian to the thunderous crowds at Grosvenor Square, Londoners were no longer mere spectators. How did a nation half a world away become a British obsession? A shared conscience for an entire generation? Today, join Beyond Horizons UK as we leaf through the archives to find a very different London, a city that, for a fleeting, fiery moment, beat in time with the pulse of Vietnam. At the time, the conflict in Vietnam was far more than a distant headline. It had become woven into the very fabric of British daily life. Every morning, alongside their tea or coffee, Londoners would open The Guardian or The Times to find themselves confronted by the raw, unvarnished truths of the front lines. For the first time in history, the visceral reality of war was being brought home, delivered with haunting clarity, directly into the nation's living room. Veteran British correspondents, men like Max Hastings and James Cameron, did far more than report on troop movements or statistics. Through their searing prose and gritty footage, they gave London a window into the agony and the startling resilience of a people, while casting a long, uncomfortable shadow over the morality of the war itself. Across the country, Britain began to stir. Questions were being asked, debates ignited in university halls, and flickered across middle-class dinner tables in the suburbs. Why was this happening? Why did the brutality endure? The morning papers were no longer just lifeless sheets of news. They had become kindling, quietly stoking a fire of resistance that was now waiting to erupt, right in the heart of London. And then, the quiet contemplation over morning tea turned into a thunderous roar on the streets. In March 1968, and again in 1972, London shed its polite exterior. Tens of thousands, long-haired students, brooding intellectuals, and ordinary workers converged on Grosvenor Square, right at the doorstep of the American Embassy. This wasn't just a march. This was the eruption of a generation. Imagine the scene. Chants lost in the rhythmic thud of police horses, a sea of raised fists, and the heavy atmosphere under a leaden London sky. A people famed for their stiff upper lip were now shouting for a nation half a world away. Why such fury? Why was blood spilled in the elegant heart of Mayfair over a war that wasn't Britain's to fight? Because, in those moments, Vietnam was no longer a mere geographical concept. It had become the moral litmus test of an era. As the echoes of the protests faded into history, what remained was more than just tattered banners or yellowing newsprints. The war in Vietnam left a profound scar on the soul of British society, but it was a scar of awakening. It forever altered how this island nation perceived the world, the nature of power, and the weight of individual responsibility in the face of global injustice. London in the 1970s did not simply look inward. It was a city that agonized, that raged, and that, for a time, beat in perfect unison with a distant land half a world away. Our journey today with Beyond Horizons UK isn't just about revisiting a closed chapter of history. It is a tribute to those who refused to remain bystanders, to those who chose the voice of conscience over the comfort of silence. Because, in the end, no matter the miles between us, the values of peace and human dignity remain the invisible threads that bind us all together.